The ratings are in for Dynamite and NXT, and they are both down. Obviously, with the impeachment trial, a lot of news coverage with that, so that affected the ratings in a way. But here are the final tallies for both. AEW Dynamite went from a 0.32 last week to a 0.29 this week, losing over 100,000 total viewers to 741,000 total viewers. While NXT, they saw a drop as well, going from a 0.15 to a 0.12 in the 18 to 49 demographic. Also, 558,000 total viewers. Now, obviously, the impeachment trial, like I mentioned, was part of the reason for this. But what are your thoughts on the drop for both shows?
NXT, I mean, granted, the numbers certainly are encouraging, but it's not like they are in the same position that AEW is in. And what I mean by that is this. So AEW right now is doing something with New Japan Pro Wrestling and Impact Wrestling that a lot of people feel like is revolutionary or game changing or something that can certainly steer the direction of the industry in a, just, move it to a different spot. And unfortunately, with ratings and with viewership, that's usually a reflection of how well you did the previous week and how interested you made the fans for the week from the previous week as well. If I'm AEW, I'm looking at this as a pretty big disappointment considering the drop in the viewership and the drop in the rating, because the most newsworthy thing other than Edge making a return and winning the Rumble and all of those things that are going on is the fact that they are now working with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And this was really the first test that we got of where fans were going to fall in terms of their level of excitement. Now, granted, right now, it's hard to really use just ratings and viewership as the barometer for how interested people are.
Right.
Because you can't, it's not like you can go based off ticket sales because, we don't have places where you can go to full capacity. I think we won't really know how interested people truly are until that time happens. But for right now, I'm looking at this as AEW, and I'm disappointed. I really would be.
I mean, I think the thing you have to consider here is, as wrestling fans, we like to focus on just the wrestling shows and their ratings. And if they drop, if they go up, we need to see why that happens. And I think what it is just shows you like there's outside factors that factor into the ratings more than the shows themselves. Now, obviously, this week it was the fact that there was impeachment coverage. So that affected the ratings for everybody. And despite that, AEW Dynamite was still the second highest non-news program in the 18 to 49 demographic, only behind MTV's The Challenge, which surprisingly, actually, I don't even know if it is surprisingly, they dropped from number 1 this week to number 3. So their hit wasn't as big as AEW's, but they also have a higher percentage starting off. So that's probably why they were able to stick around the top 3, whereas AEW dropped from 3 to 21. So some people like to point the finger at bad products. Some people like to point it out as, oh, it's not popular. Sometimes it's just other outside factors. I know a couple weeks ago, we talked about AEW Dynamite's drop in the viewership, and this was around the ratings that they were 2 weeks ago, and they blamed it on streaming issues, or some people were saying it was the streaming issues. And I, as someone that works in television, said that it might not be the streaming because I'm not 100% sure whether or not they were playing the same ads, and that determines whether or not they're counted in the live cable same day ratings as we brought up before. And some people were questioning me, how do you not know streaming's not part of the ratings or not? And it's very wish-washy because it depends on if the ads are playing or not. So that comes into play. And so many like outside factors. When 2 weeks ago, there was a Philly 76er versus LA Laker game that took a lot of the 18 to 34 demo that week, and no one talked about that. Same thing here. The impeachment trial, we know was part of the reason, but is it that only the reason, or is it the product? I think it's a mixture of the two.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I mean, back when a couple of weeks ago when those numbers first came out, and there was all these people talking about streaming issues, it wasn't like the numbers took a drastic nosedive to the point where it was some outlandish number, something outside the realm of possibility that AEW was pulling some type of crazy numbers, and then they just, tanked.
Right.
So these are similar numbers. It's not like it's anything crazy in terms of the dip in viewership. Like I said, it's not encouraging. It's certainly not the end of the world, but at the same time, given the fact that right now you do have AEW working with New Japan Pro Wrestling, how interested are people outside of the AEW fan base going to be? How much is it going to entice somebody to tune into pro wrestling
Mhm.
that wouldn't normally be watching AEW or pro wrestling in general? And that's the thing. Like right now, I still feel like we're operating within that bubble of the hardcore fan base. When are they going to break out? If they're going to break out at ever? It might take more than just what we're looking at right now. But again, we're just going based on TV numbers. We can't go on ticket sales or anything like that.
Right.
So who knows? I guess hopefully soon we'll find out just how impactful this partnership it can actually be.
Right. And also, if you're one of those that wants to look at total viewership, the 50 plus demo is really where the viewership gets skewed. And AEW Dynamite had a 0.27 2 weeks ago, a point, I think 3.2 this last week, and then back to a 0.27 this week. So like the stock market, things fluctuate. So
Yep.
as wrestling fans, just enjoy the shows. Try not to focus too much on ratings. If you are interested in the numbers, fine, that's it. But don't be one of these like flag carriers that is like, oh, AEW is the best because they're beating NXT in the ratings. Or if you're WWE fans, like, oh, look, they can't even reach 1 million. Like, who cares at this point? Just
you mean like Gallows and Anderson last night?
yeah, exactly. So just, I mean, I'm not saying don't be interested in the numbers because that's why we talk about this stuff because there's definitely an interest, but the tribalism in some of this, I could talk both ways and defend both promotions when it comes to ratings. So if you like that clip, check out our next clip by clicking the thumbnail on the screen right now. We also got merch available. Get 10% off with the promo code SCPB10. And don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell for notifications to join the conversation. We'll see you on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble.